We are an endangered species, you and I. We, lovers of speed. We, devotees of power, performance, and noise. Go away, we are told, and take your carbon fibre and your fire-spitting V12s with you. There's hardly a place for us out here anymore, not amongst all the commuters and congestion. Not in this growing age of safety and restraint, where practicality trumps adrenaline, where the ratio of miles to the gallon is championed over horsepower to the weight. The evidence, it's everywhere. You and I are being squeezed out, pushed aside and hunted down at every hairpin turn. And yet, there is hope. There is a safe haven, a place where we are free to challenge conventions, push the laws of physics and drive our powerful, our beautiful machines hard. It's not a racetrack in Germany or even a highway in Montana. It's not even a real place, actually. It's more than that. It's a communal celebration of horsepower, torque, grip, leather, technology, beauty. It is the last bastion of automotive lust. And it's right there in your living room. Everyone knows American cars are terrible, and cars from Europe, especially cars from Italy, are better. Better looking, better driving, and usually better sounding. 50 years ago, Henry Ford knew this. That's why he tried to buy Ferrari and thought he had, until Enzo Ferrari looked down his Roman nose and said, you know what? Actually, you can't have it. So, Henry decided to kick Ferrari where it hurt, on the racetrack. He wrote a blank check and told his engineers to build a better racing car and beat Ferrari at Le Mans. And astonishingly, that car, a British chassis with an American engine, the Ford GT40, did just that. 4 times. This car is not the GT40, but it looks like one. And it was made to celebrate Ferrari's humiliation, only this time on the road, not the track. It's the Ford GT, not the GT40, because unlike that car, it's more than 40 inches tall, so Americans could fit into it. But the idea is just the same. A great big V8, a 5.4-litre with a supercharger, and a relatively simple aluminium chassis. 220 miles an hour, and frankly astonishing handling for a car from America. And movie star looks. I have never driven a car that attracts more attention, and I drove this one a lot, because I bought one as remarkably, at the time, there wasn't a Ferrari that was better. And that's only something that happens once every 50 years. Above 155 miles an hour, they stop trying to classify hurricanes. 155 miles an hour is a Category 5, the kind that killed 12,000 burly Texans in 1900. There is no Category 6, because if there was, there'd be nobody left to classify it once it had passed. The Bugatti Veyron will pass through the air at 252 miles an hour, so you have some idea of the forces of nature at work here, and the reasons why it needs to haul that vast aeroplane wing into the airstream to keep it stable. It's also why it needs 16 cylinders, 8 litres, 4 turbochargers, 10 radiators, and 1,000 horsepower. Everything about this car is Category 6. Except, that is, the skill level required to drive it. Your mother could. A flappy paddle gearbox developed by people who develop Formula One gearboxes, and a four-wheel drive system developed with some considerable amount of head-scratching by rocket scientists means you just get in and drive. And you won't drive anything faster. Anything. Like Concorde and the Saturn V, the Veyron is the furthest its particular engineering avenue will be explored. The men who engineered it are probably working now on hydrogen propulsion. There is no longer a place in the world for a car that will, with a twist of the special extra key required to dial in that hurricane-beating top speed, consume a set of 10,000-pound tyres in just 300 miles. And that makes me sad. There's a famous scene from the first Gulf War when a convoy of Humvees enters a minefield. One of them hits a mine, gets blown clean in the air, lands on all four wheels, and continues on. That is not possible in a Land Rover. It was at this moment that the Hummer legend was born. And someone quickly figured out that there were enough crazed gym enthusiasts in California to justify making the Humvee available to non-military types. Fitting the Humvee into civvies meant replacing the 6.5-litre Detroit diesel engine with a 6.6-litre GM Duramax. And since this engine made just 300 horsepower in a car that weighs more than most houses, it was often quicker to walk to the shops than use the Hummer. Still, if between you and the shops was a 22-inch obstacle to be cleared, or a puddle 30 inches deep, or a minefield, the Hummer H1 was the car for you. These turned out to be obstacles that most people don't face, and as a result, the H1 Alpha was discontinued after just over a year. This is not just the greatest car Mercedes makes. Right now, I think it's the greatest car in the world. It's more powerful than a Ferrari 458, it's a little bit louder than a Lamborghini, and it's way more fun than the 911 RS GT Turbo 3S, or whatever this week's Ultimate Beetle is called. This is the thinking men's supercar, the Mercedes SLS. The engine is AMG's own 6.2-litre V8 linked to a flappy paddle double-clutch gearbox that sits at the back for perfect weight distribution, so that it feels as though the entire car pivots around, well, around your bottom. It does a lot of pivoting, if truth be told, because while it can do huge distances in great comfort, what it is at heart is a shouty, snarly, tail-happy, gull-winged lunatic. And that is why I love it. This is the very latest mid-engined V8 Ferrari, the 458 Italia. Pretty, isn't it? And that's not something you can say about many of their efforts from the last few years. The 430 had a front end like a leering idiot. The 348 looked like it had crashed into a Venetian blind showroom. But this looks just right. Its appearance isn't just for show either. Those black fins in the front grille flex under air pressure, so the faster you go, the more they bend out of the way to improve aerodynamics. And there are no engine intakes to spoil the sides because they've been moved underneath the car. So it looks fantastic, and its 4.5-litre, 562 horsepower V8 means it has the guts to punch you repeatedly in the back of the head. But that alone wouldn't be enough. Some of its ancestors have been as incompetent and terrifying as having brain surgery performed by a baboon. As it turns out, the 458 is better than that. Much better. In fact, it's a sharp-handling, smooth-riding, savagely fast masterpiece. Of course, it's not perfect. For some reason, they've put far too many buttons on the steering wheel. The dashboard screens are so complicated they can only be worked by Bill Gates, and personally, I'd still rather have the brutal Mercedes SLS. But I can't deny that the 458 is a great car and a proper Ferrari. Naming a car company after yourself is fine if you're called Ferrari or Pagani or Lamborghini or even Morgan. It's not such a good idea if your last name is something stupid like Shufflebottom or Death. Unfortunately, this is advice that was ignored by a German man called Roland Gumpert. And here is the result: the Gumpert Apollo S. However, despite the stupid name, when this strange-looking car came to our test track, it lapped quicker than anything, including the original Veyron. But then that's not entirely surprising when you learn that it's basically a racing car with headlights and a twin-turbo Audi V8 that in basic tune makes 650 horsepower. That's enough for 0 to 60 in less than 3 seconds and a top speed of 223. Better yet, there's the option to tweak it up to 800 horsepower. And plans are afoot to launch a version with 1,000 horsepower. So that's the Gumpert Apollo. Silly name, serious car.